Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. My name is Abby and we have special guest Emilio. This is my boyfriend and I wanted him to come onto this video because today we're going to be talking about my full lighting setup, my camera. I am not the lighting expert, he is, so without him I wouldn't have beautiful lighting for my videos. What we're going to be talking about in this video is what was most important to me when I started my YouTube channel. Obviously my main beauty video setup, which is this setup right here. I'm going to talk about everything from camera, lighting, audio, all the things. And then last I'm going to talk about how I film my short form content for TikTok, Instagram from my phone. So let's get into it. Yay. What was important to me for getting my videos
What was important to you?
was having really good quality. I really wanted a good depth of field, which if you want to explain what depth of field is.
Depth of field is basically how much the subject is separated from the background in a picture or video.
And then next was having a good sensor. I wanted it to basically separate me from the background and also not cut off my head because I still wanted to do videos that were kind of vlog style, so I wanted to hold the camera. My old camera had a smaller sensor.
Basically the camera that Abby has is a full frame sensor, and a full frame sensor means you're going to have a larger image. Crop sensor, or APS-C, which is what the ZV-E10 is, effectively shrinks the image. So if you're the same distance from the camera, everything's going to look tighter. And it's going to be much more difficult to vlog, or if you're in a small room like this, it's going to shrink everything you see around the subject, and it's going to make it very difficult to kind of get the image you want.
I also didn't want to go with the most affordable option. I really wanted it to be future-proof to where I can migrate this camera throughout. Like my first ever YouTube camera that I had, I no longer can use because the sensor is so small and it doesn't read with the nicer lenses that were able to like capture my whole space. I wanted it to be really easy to set up. My whole setup in here is, I mean, it stays here. I don't set it up every time, but it's easy to move it to my kitchen if I want to do videos in that kind of environment. And I really wanted a camera that works well in low light. Our house is pretty dim, so I wanted a video camera that works well in low light. And the last thing that was really important is product showcasing. So when I hold a device up closer and how the focus switches really quickly, that was really important to me as well. Next, we're moving into my main video setup for my beauty videos, which again is what you're looking at right now. The camera I got is the Sony ZV-E1. And I got Sony because all of his cameras were Sony and he had all the lenses already for me. So it was honestly just easier to use his lenses versus buy all new ones because it is a pretty expensive setup if you're starting out.
So you have a 24-70 f2.8 G Master. Lenses are almost more important than the camera body. What was more important was getting a camera body that would check all the boxes she listed before. Something that filmed in high resolution so she could crop, something that high resolution in this case is 4K, something that had good low light performance, something very video forward. So while all my cameras are mostly used for photography, this was a great video vlogging camera.
Next up, we're going to talk about the tripod. I don't really have my favorite tripod, but I will link ones that I will get in the future. The one I use right now works fine, but if I was to buy a brand new first-timer tripod, the one that I would recommend will be linked for you. The only thing to really make sure about your tripod is that it's sturdy and that it holds your camera. Next is where I put my camera in my room. So I just wanted to show you in my space, this is how far it is from my desk, and so this is where I am. And he said that putting the camera further away from my desk and separating me from the background was really important, otherwise you won't get this blurred background effect.
There's a couple of things that are really important, one of which is how close the camera is to you determines the way your face looks in the camera as well. So if you use a wide angle lens and you want to capture the entire room and the camera's close to you, it can distort your face and make it look like your nose is more prominent than it is, your chin is more prominent than it is, while as you get farther and farther away and you zoom in more to keep the same frame, your face starts to flatten out a bit. And I think the human eyes see it about a 50mm effective focal length. If you're curious, you can look up online just focal length impact on face, and you'll see that at something wide like 35mm, your face looks quite wide in the middle. And at something really long, like 200mm, yeah, your face really shrinks and looks more desirable. So the idea was putting the camera as far as possible while then zooming in allowed her to get that same frame that you see here, but also make it look as though her face is more photorealistic compared to if you were really close to it. The second benefit of that is also at greater zoom length, so longer focal length, the impact of the aperture or the f-stop is greater. You get the same blurring using a 70mm lens at f2.8 as you would a 35mm lens at f2 closer up. So it allows her to utilize this lens without having to get one that's even wider, which was kind of the benefit, because if she had to buy a camera and a lens, kind of defeated the purpose with going with Sony. What?
You're just so smart. You just know so many things.
She could have accomplished a similar setup using, there's 50mm 1.8 lenses that you can buy that tend to be pretty cheap no matter what system you're using. Sony has one that's probably less than $500. I know Canon has one as well. And if you don't plan on zooming a lot, using a prime lens like that, prime lens is simply one that just has a fixed focal length, allows you to get a really good image without having to spend as much as you would for a zoom lens. Our dog is snoring.
So loud. Last thing with the camera that I have, he recommended me to get this little remote, which has been such a game changer because I don't have to get up and turn off the camera because like I said, it's kind of far away from me. So that would have been a whole thing.
I think it's worth probably mentioning why it's so valuable to get a full frame camera versus a crop sensor or APS-C one.
I agree.
And it's because they are more expensive, which is frustrating to think about spending that much money on your first camera. You'll find that you tend to, especially if you plan on using a camera as much as you do when you're vlogging or taking photos, you'll grow out of a simpler or base model more quickly than you think. And APS-C crop sensor cameras have crop sensor lenses that work with them. Full frame lenses work with them as well. But as a result, everything is going to be cheaper when you use that. If you buy a crop sensor lens and use it on your camera, and you later decide to upgrade to a full frame camera, you're not going to be able to use the lenses you bought previously. So
that's exactly what happened to me. I have an old Canon and I actually can't even, like, it's in there and I'm trying to sell it and no one will buy it. And I don't have any ability to use these lenses on that camera. It essentially just sits there. So it was a waste of money in the end.
So even if you are staying in the same system, you're going to have, for example, Sony lenses that will work with your new Sony full frame body. But what you're going to see is you're going to see a black outline where the image circle doesn't cover the full sensor. As well, if you're planning on holding your camera out in front of you vlogging style, like many people do, the crop sensor cameras effectively crop the image in 1.5x. So if you have a 50mm lens, it has the same image as you would normally have a 75mm lens on a full frame camera. So what that means is if you're holding your camera away from you and you have a crop sensor camera, it's gonna really shrink the image that you see. So if you want something that catches not only your head and your body, but also what's going on behind you, you either need to use a very wide lens on a crop camera, which tends to have that fisheye effect. Imagine using your like 0.5 setting on your iPhone. Or if you have a full frame camera, you can use a wider lens and you won't have that same dramatic impact that you would have with a crop sensor camera.
So if I fully zoom out on this lens, you're able to see, I'm literally getting the entire room now. And then if I zoom in all the way, I can get about that close. Now we're going to move on to the lighting setup, which you don't necessarily need to stay for. So I think you're good.
Sweet.
Thank you so much for your help.
You're
this
welcome.
is Emilio. Thank you so much.
All right.
And since you're meeting him, I thought maybe you would like to meet my little puppies. This is Rue. Now I'm just going to talk about my lighting setup. To my right, I would say about 1:30, 2 o'clock. It's a softbox light that I got on Amazon years ago. Getting a softbox light on one side, and then on the opposite side of that, I have this portable light that I got from Amazon, and I just put it on one of my tripods. Actually, the same tripod that softbox is on. So it has a battery, it's easy to move around, it's more of a spotlight effect, it's not as soft. Again, playing with it, I have a little remote here, so I wanted to show you what it looks like with that light off. This is without that light. So you can see it really does fill in this side of my face, and it does a really good job of it. And let me show you really quick what it looks like without that light. So this is what it looks like without any light on me at all. and this is with just the softbox light. And then this is with my spotlight. So it really does make a difference. And then to fill in this like shadowing effect here, and also my most secret weapon, favorite tool that I have in my toolbox for this video is my little Conair light. It is so good and it gets even brighter. And that's what it looks like with it off. So sometimes I'll just put it on 2 or 3 depending on how pale I am or how close I'm putting my mirror to me. This is what it looks like, pieces on the side, but that way I don't have that ring light in my eye, and I can also adjust it up and down. So it's just that perfect eye length for my table so I can actually see what I'm doing and also light my face from this side. Because I'm generally looking this direction, I don't want this half of my face to fully fall off. So that's how I do my lighting setup. So I don't have the overhead lights and the side lights and the lights behind me. Granted, he did put a strip light underneath of my shelf back there, and I have a little remote here. I will also link this for you guys, but you can see it just adds so much warmth to the space to have that light behind me. I also have this light overhead, which is just a regular little chandelier light. So that's my full lighting setup. Now for audio, the audio on my camera, I use the Rode Wireless, so I have it plugged into my camera, and then I also have, this is my little microphone here, and I have it just on a little phone tripod situation that I got from Amazon. This is not, again, none of these are like what I would recommend getting. I like to make do with what I have. That's why I got the Sony. That's why I'm using these lights. This is why this microphone works great on this little tripod, because it sits in the perfect place where you guys can hear me, but it's not in the camera frame, it's just below it. So that is my microphone setup. I would love to get a different setup, because when I'm in my kitchen and I'm cooking and I'm walking around or I'm talking to the camera, I don't want to have the microphone clipped on me all the time like I have been. So I have a couple recommendations of microphones that my friends who are YouTubers have suggested to me, which I will link below. Those microphones are more like mounting on the actual camera, and they do a really good job of picking up the sound, but I haven't gotten there yet. So there's a couple things. I need a new tripod. I need different microphones. I love this microphone a lot. It does a really good job. For editing my videos, I use Final Cut Pro. It's just what I started using. It felt very entry level. It felt like I could get the videos done really well. I asked some of my friends who do YouTube and are very good editors what they use, and they use Premiere Pro. And I said, should I switch over and learn how to do Premiere Pro because I have Final Cut? And they're like, honestly, no, if you already know it, then stick with it. So I don't have anything bad to say about Final Cut Pro. I really enjoy it. And he said that people can create really impressive video content through Final Cut Pro. The other thing is that I think it's a yearly charge for the Premiere Pro, and Final Cut Pro is like a one-time charge. So for me, when I was trying to like maximize my budgeting, I felt like Final Cut Pro was the most budget-friendly option. And I'm really glad that I went there with that. I think I never hit any roadblocks where I'm like, oh, I wish it did this. So just so you know, if you were looking at what to edit on, Final Cut Pro has done really well for me. Moving on to my short form content, how I film for Instagram or TikTok or YouTube Shorts. If I'm not using a video from my YouTube in the horizontal frame, in Final Cut Pro, you can actually copy the video into a new video, like duplicate it, and then you can change it to be a vertical frame. And generally, I try to always stay within this same vertical area, because then I can just crop right there and then use that for my short form content, so I can repurpose it and not have to film constantly all the time. But if I'm making my videos for TikTok or Instagram, they generally look like this, and it's the exact same lighting setup. Everything is the same, except I use a little tripod for my phone. This is from Amazon. Again, everything is just linked for you down below. Some is from Amazon. I have a full Amazon storefront, so you can find everything that I talked about in this video. But here's my little tripod. It comes out like this. You can do horizontal or vertical, and then it slides so you can balance out the weight to make sure it is fitting properly. I can zoom in more efficiently on TikTok. I film my videos in TikTok, so it looks like this when I open up the app. If I'm gonna film in my normal video, you can see that I can't zoom in at all, but once I get into TikTok, I can zoom in on my front frame and then I can get rid of that chandelier behind me. I hate that thing. So I try to like get rid of it, and then you can balance it out, and then I will film, press the button, say my things, touch it again, talk, say my things, and then check, and then hit next. TikTok keeps changing the way that they're doing this, but you have to hit post. Once that video posts like this, you can just delete and re-edit. It will automatically save to your camera roll, and then when you hit re-edit, you just go to drafts. I don't know if that made sense to you, but the whole reason I film in TikTok is simply because I can't stand that chandelier. I know I could crop in on the video after when I go to edit it in CapCut, which I use CapCut to edit my videos. But there's something about the quality. I feel like it just looks better when it's on TikTok, and people always ask me about how I film my short form videos because the content looks so good. The quality looks great. Number one, it's the lighting. Number two, I think filming in TikTok does a really good job of that. I don't even have like a nice fancy phone. I have the 14 Pro, which is a couple generations old. So it's not even that big. It's not even that new, but the lighting and everything, and I think TikTok has a little bit to do with it. So when they were going to ban the app, I was like, oh no, how am I going to film my videos? Because that's how I have my videos set up. So yeah, that's it. I think that covers pretty much everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any more questions about my lighting or setup, ask Emilio. I will have him comment back to you with any information that he has. But until the next video, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you then.